Hey fans, did you know that 4-Star Sports Media now has a YouTube channel? You can catch exclusive content covering all things Memphis Tigers and the Arkansas Razorbacks. Shows like The Point, and the only show on social media about the Arkansas Razorbacks that is purely fan-driven inside the Hog Pen. Plus other shows like The Hog Trough, The 4-Star Sports Show, and many more coming soon. So check them out today. Go on YouTube.com and search 4-Star Sports Media.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the 4-Star Sports Media Show. I'm your host, Jason Patterson. I got Wes Pruitt on the line here with me, too. Wes, my man, how you doing?
Jason, I'm doing well, man. It's going to be really, really fun tonight to talk about a very interesting topic, and that is one Mr. John Morant.
That is true, and that and a little bit of SEC football, too. And I am going to bring on a legend that is of Memphis sports radio from Sport 56. I have got Bret Norsworthy. Bret, my man, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you all for having me.
Thank you so much.
I'm sorry, I lost audio for a second.
Wes, can you give me a little bit of hand here, my man? Bret, can you hear me?
Can.
Okay. Wes, I'm trying to take Bret off of the cam here, and it's
just leave me up. That's okay.
And this is
it's very tricky, man.
That's fine.
It's very tricky.
Let me double check one more thing.
You're good. So basically, all Bret would have to do would go down and click his camera button, and once he clicks his camera button, his audio would stay in.
There we go.
That?
All right.
I'm sorry, I told you it was technical.
No, that's all right. Hey, we're still trying to find out some of the kinks too. I've only been on this for a couple of months, Bret, and from an end user standpoint and to a person that's also out there, I kind of have a little bit of a difficult time myself. So, well, again, thank you for jumping on with us. So, real quick, we got SEC Media Days coming up next month, and I do believe that you're going to be out there. Is that correct?
I will be there. It will be my 27th or 28th. 28th. It'll be my 28th, not in a row. Of course, we didn't have it. COVID, and there were some years in the 90s that I didn't make the travel roster, but this will be about, since we've had them, excluding 2020, this will be about 18 or 19 in a row.
And can you talk a little bit about what the difference maybe from a standpoint of having it in Birmingham last year in Atlanta, this year in Nashville? Is it nice to kind of see a little bit of a change up, or is it really nice to have that consistency every year at the same place?
I'm really okay by either way. We got so used to being at the Winfrey in Birmingham. I mean, it was old home week there, and it was for everybody. And I, probably the most hotel room nights in my life, and probably but mostly there. But I like to change pace. Last year in Atlanta, we had a good time, and they had great parties for us and fun times and the College Football Hall of Fame. But now with the explosion in Nashville, you knew they were going to get involved, and you almost feel certain with Texas and Oklahoma coming into the league at some point, probably next year, Dallas will get involved. I don't know that we ever get back to Birmingham. If we do, I don't think the Winfrey is big enough for us because now it's such a TV production with the SEC Network, and naturally with the SEC Network, they're catering to them first. It really used to be to print, media, and radio kind of first and second, 1 and 1A really. But you can understand it with the amount of money the SEC's got in the expenditures for the network. You can understand kind of catering to their needs. I have no trouble with it. Wherever it is, I love it. And I think it's like anything else. You'll get out of it what you put in it. If you really don't want to be there, you really don't want to go, and you think it's just promotion, and you think everybody's going 12-0, then you won't have a very good week. You won't get very much out of it. I go and I get a football quotient out of it every year, something I can tangibly use in October and November. I get out of media days, and I love it. I don't have many more left in me, but the ones I've been to, I've enjoyed every year.
And when you talk about getting something tangible out of SEC media days, I understand firsthand. I'd never been to one. Last year was my first year, and the connections that you make at these events, because it's so saturated with great talent, great camaraderie, you just can't help but be able to take something from that each year.
Yeah, and again, it's like anything else, whether it's school or social or a hobby. You get out of it what you put in it, and I enjoy it. Now, I know the critics of it is it's just promotion, and it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy among the media. And our preseason votes don't hold up very well most years. If we pick you to win the SEC, you can almost go against it. But I've enjoyed it. It's very much has changed. Radio Row used to be 9, 10, maybe 12 stations. This year, I think it'll be 40 plus minimum, maybe even into 50s, and literally spanning every waking hour. I mean, you can go down to Radio Row at 6 o'clock in the morning Central Time, and there are people just jabbering away, and there's still people there at 6 o'clock at night.
Most definitely. Yeah, let's talk a little bit about SEC football, and one of the things I want to touch on too is you got Quinshon Judkins and you've got Rocket Sanders coming in as almost a 1A, 1B running back slate from Ole Miss to Arkansas into the SEC this coming year. Rocket Sanders kind of more of a dark horse pick for Heisman at the beginning of the year, somebody to kind of look at. But you also look at Quinshon Judkins and that offense with Lane Kiffin. You look at Blake Corum a little bit from Michigan, but those two are running backs I feel are really going to be able to pace the SEC and also the NCAA this year.
Well, it's really tough for a running back to be in Heisman contention. Bijan Robinson may have been the best player in college football last year at Texas and may have the big breakout rookie season with the Atlanta Falcons. And once upon a time, if you were a Texas running back, whether you were Earl Campbell or Ricky Williams, that'd win you a Heisman Trophy. But now, now it's certainly become a quarterback award. But for Rocket Sanders, he had most of this last year that Quinshon Judkins is going to encounter this year. Judkins had the benefit last year of kind of running back by committee. This year, he'll be the featured guy. Rocket Sanders will be the same thing. They have capable helpers there, but they're going to be asking those big SEC games, like for Arkansas, the stretch of LSU, A&M, Ole Miss, Alabama, Mississippi State. They're going to ask Rocket Sanders to go out there and tote it 25 times a game. How much will he have left at the end of the year? For Ole Miss, when they hit that middle portion of the year, Bama, LSU, Arkansas, Quinshon Judkins is not going to be able to do it 16, 15, 17 times a game. He's got to do it 25, 26, and 27. How much will they have left in November after they go through that in October?
Most definitely. And another thing that I want to touch on too real quick is that Lane Kiffin's got a little bit of a quarterback battle going on down there in Oxford.
He's got a good competition going. He wants competition. He wants Jackson Dart push. Luke Altmaier really never pushed him last year. If you'll remember, Jackson Dart started opening day, and then Luke Altmaier started week 2 against Central Arkansas, and then it was Dart the rest of the year. They want Dart to stay hungry. I think he's going to be the starter opening day against Mercer. I think he'll be the starter week 2 when Ole Miss goes to Tulane in a very competitive game. But he wants him push. Spencer Sanders is there to push, and Walker Howard's there to push. Now, the young player that just signed, I don't think anybody's really expecting him to get a lot of run next year in football. He may in baseball.
Yeah, and you look at also the for just a second too, the Arkansas quarterback situation. KJ is now stepping into his 3rd year as a starting quarterback.
He's the guy.
Now, he really is going to be the guy, but this year under Dan Enos, he's not going to be taking the hits that he has the last 2 years under Kendall Briles, because Dan's going to be setting it up for him to be successful and not be the all-world quarterback that he may want to be, but Arkansas needs him to be the guy that's going to be upright 12 games this season.
They do, and you got to play the long game. And that SEC, that the early part of the schedule, even for Arkansas, the home game against BYU, I mentioned that the October portion, it's brutal. How much do you have left for Auburn and Missouri down the stretch? And people should remember the day that Dan Enos was hired, I said great hire, because I remember what he did with Brandon Allen. Yep. And what he did with Brandon Allen is he took him from pretty good to really steady to arguably maybe the best state of Arkansas produced quarterback to ever play at Arkansas.
He had a hell of a shootout there against Mississippi State and Dak Prescott. I do believe it was like a 50-48 or a 56-54 game. And
I had one in the Hunter Henry Heath game. Remember, that game was 45-45 going to overtime. Brandon Allen really got good work. I thought the next year Austin did a good job, but Brandon Allen really did a good job. And now I think, still getting an NFL check. Dan Enos was a good hire. What they want out of KJ is keep him upright where he can make a difference down the stretch. If they have a healthy KJ against Liberty and Hugh Freeze last year, that's probably a win. They had to get him good and healthy and play great against Ole Miss and really trucked Ole Miss.
And one last thing before we moved on to a little bit of NBA talk for just a second. SEC is not going to be sporting divisions this year. And I think, or 24, I'm sorry. And what I think is going to be, go ahead. Sorry, Brett.
Yeah, it's going to be in 24. This is the last year division play will be the 32nd year the Razorbacks have been in the SEC, and that's all they've ever known is West and East, because that was the first year in 92 when they joined the league. Roy Kramer, former commissioner, and Mark Womack, a SEC official, Mark Whitworth, that used to be with SEC, Charles Bloom, that used to be with SEC, and is now at South Carolina. They came up with the divisions and found in the fine print that if you had divisions, you could have a championship game. That was really reserved for Division III. Like Sewanee and Millsaps and Rose-Hulman and teams like that. The NCAA did not like when they found it. So I'm going to miss the divisions. And I always kind of like the East versus West pride that we took. And we can remember a time in the 90s where the decided advantage was for the Eastern teams, largely those great Steve Spurrier teams, the great Philip Fulmer teams, and a couple other good teams in the East as well. But it really swung in the early 21st century to the West being the power. But right now, in the East, it's Georgia.
It really is. And really only East or West at this point, it's Georgia, because Alabama's had such a stranglehold the last 10 plus years. You really didn't. You saw a team maybe come up and maybe bite out their ankles a little bit, like an A&M or a Florida, or at sometimes even a Missouri that might try to come out of the East. But it really, Georgia has taken the stranglehold on the SEC, and Kirby's really made it his own.
He has, and all credit to them. They are the back-to-back national champs, and they have a really good chance to do the unthinkable. Something that not even Nick Saban or Bear Bryant could do, and that's go 3 straight. But in that stretch of Georgia Bulldog prowess on the field, they've only beat Alabama 1 time on the field. Now, we're all hoping, or maybe not hoping, but expecting, Georgia versus Bama this year in the SEC championship game. But I really don't. I think Tennessee can beat Georgia late in the year, and with that head-to-head win, they advance to the SEC championship game.
Most definitely. And I know that some folks, they don't like repeats. They like to see new blood kind of come into the fold. But you really want to see a healthy Alabama team go up against a healthy Georgia team and not lose a host of wide receivers or skill position players, and let them duke it out and see who comes out on top. But one note I do want to make is that Arkansas fans were, I wouldn't say celebrating in the streets, but they were definitely celebrating at home when they found out that they did not have Alabama on their 24 schedule.
Everybody's celebrating that. Ole Miss doesn't have them either, nor Auburn, just like the Razorbacks. So that will be different. But right now, what appears to maybe be easy in summer of 23 may actually be difficult when you're playing them on the field in October or November of 24, and vice versa. It could be the opposite. What might look really hard now could be easier. We've seen that with Florida. Nobody would have expected this dip that Florida's had. And what it has really been able to prove is, except for Steve Spurrier and Urban Meyer, not anybody else can get it done at Florida.
Yeah, we'll have to see what Billy Napier can do. I feel like his trajectory so far since he's taken that Florida hire has almost been, I would want to say, the name escapes me. He was only there for a year, 2 years there at Auburn.
Gene Chizik.
No, guy after Gus came from Boise State.
Brian Harsin.
Yeah, Brian Harsin. I feel like, I don't think that Florida Board of Trustees or boosters are really after him quite yet, but I know that they've been pretty vocal with how he's kind of managed.
But they can get after him real quick.
Yeah, they're going to. So you have to buckle up and see where they're going to go. So let's move it over to the hardwood just for a few moments before we get you out of here, Brett. So Adam Silver came down on Friday and announced that Ja Morant was going to serve a 25-game suspension for the conduct he's been kind of doing outside of the court a little bit. What was your take on when you found out the number of games he's going to be missing?
I was a little surprised. I was thinking in the 17 to 20 to 21 area that I think they're going to appeal it. I know the Players Association is really squawking, and they may plea it down a game or two, but I never bought half the season or the whole season like some were saying. And last year, game number 25 fell on December 7th. It also shows you just how early the NBA starts, around 18th, 19th, 20th October, and how many games that they play. And last year they were 16-9 in that first 25. And, right now with that, in Ja's absence, I think they would take a 14-11, a 13-12, just anything, just kind of tread a little water until he got back. And they've proven through the years to be pretty good in his absence, although last year they were only 11-10 in his absence. But what is a little bit alarming for Memphis and for the Grizzlies, we finally get that transcendent superstar, the real ticket seller. Forever had good teams, but forever really didn't have, a real big demand for tickets. I like to call it, can they sell out on a Monday or Tuesday night in October and November, and just had issues with that. And then we get our guy in Ja, and now he's had this trouble. But he's only appeared, the most games he's appeared in is 67 games, and he's not going to get there this year.
Yep. And I mean, it could serve him well towards the end of the season with load management that was forced, but it's also important to have him fresh whenever, like you said, if they're able to stay right around 500, stay in the hunt, and then get to the end of March and get into maybe a 5 or 6 or 7 seed, if they're able to stay right around that 500 mark, a little above, and it might be a little easier for them in the West in terms of him having those fresh legs versus guys that have put on 70 games on their odometer, and him come in there and kind of fly around. I think that they could serve them really well in the end.
Yeah, but just like in the SEC football West, there's nothing easy about that NBA Western Conference.
No.
Man, that thing every year is brutal, and you see all these moves being made already with the move for Bradley Beal now coming to Phoenix. Phoenix will be heavily favored, maybe to win the West, if not them, the defending champs, Denver, Golden State. I think you're going to have a very, very improved Dallas team. Wait and see what Portland does with Damian Lillard, and we're waiting to see what New Orleans does with Zion Williamson. And then the Grizzlies, last year they were the 2 seed and win 52 games, and 2 years ago win 56 games.
Yeah, and that's going to be one of the biggest. I think New Orleans is going to be one of the biggest question marks, because do you deal Zion? Do you stick with Zion? Do you build more around him? Or do you start to rebuild a little bit with the pieces they already have? And so I think that's going to be a big question mark. My San Antonio Spurs, I have to say, we've been the Vanderbilt of the West now for the last couple of years, and I'm telling you.
Yeah, but they were Alabama for a long time.
Yeah, they were. They sure were. But it looks like all indications are going to say they're going to pick Victor Wembanyama, which could be a generational talent. We'll have to see. But Coach Popovich, he knows what to do with young talent, so we'll have to just see. But, well, Bret, I want to appreciate you jumping in with us today. I'm going to get you out of here. I know you had a long day already, but thank you for jumping on, and we'd love to have you back again.
When I say anytime, I mean it. Thank you.
Will do. Thank you so much, Bret. All right, Wes, man, I'm going to tell you what, that was a lot of fun, man.
Man, I tell you, when it comes to just general knowledge, but especially knowledge in the city of Memphis, it doesn't get too. You're not going to find too many people that are more just astute to the city, the people, the University of Memphis, the Grizzlies. Anything going on in the city of Memphis, Bret is incredible.
And what I found interesting too was that, he was expecting, 17, 18, 21 games. There was a lot of people out there that were looking at a half season or a full season. And I felt like there was a huge discrepancy between two groups of people where they were thinking, okay, he may get a few games or he's going to get most of the damn season. There was none of that in between that we really saw. And Adam Silver and the league took everything into account. They did their due diligence. He did have 2 instances on Instagram that he claims were alcohol fueled. And it was one of those things where they're saying, okay, this is your first, I wouldn't say slap on the wrist, because he's getting hit with a $300,000 fine, essentially, for each game that he misses the first 25 games of the season, because that's what his payout is. And you look at some of those detractors. I found it quite interesting how split some of I guess you'd say just really their opinions are of the situation.
Jason, another media guy there in the city of Memphis, former Tiger football player as well, named Doc Holliday, Marcus Doc Holliday. Matter of fact, quick little plug for Doc, but he'll be on the KJM show tomorrow morning to talk about Ja Morant. But he put out a Twitter video recently, and he kind of rough estimated, but he said it's going to cost Ja roughly $50 million. By the time you look at the fact that he missed out on the all NBA stuff, so there was a endorsement there, plus here, there, other ways, it's going to cost him close to $50 million.
And that is a hit. Let's not mince words here. I understand that he may have a guaranteed contract, he may have a max contract, but anytime you talk about that type of money, which is generational wealth money, anybody's going to miss it.
Oh yeah, 50 million is 50 million. I don't care who you are. You're gonna feel that. We're talking about $50 million.
That's crazy to think of. Yeah, so I wanted to go jump back also into some SEC football for just a few moments too. One of the things that Brett also touched on, and it was just briefly, he said that KJ was the guy this year. Now, some folks could take it as KJ's the guy at Arkansas. Some folks could take it as KJ's the guy in the West, or KJ's the guy in the SEC. I took it as KJ's the guy in the SEC because you look at Jaden Daniels down at LSU. You've got you've got Dart, and also another name that he didn't mention. There's Spencer Sanders down there too.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a rehabilitation center for quarterbacks at Ole Miss.
Mm-hmm. I feel like that Lane kind of took that whole coaches rehab and turned it into quarterback rehab in a way. Because, I mean, don't get me wrong, Spencer Sanders had a pretty good career at Oklahoma State. Wasn't the best, wasn't the worst. He was kind of a middle of the road guy that had some flashes. He reminded me a lot of Spencer Rattler. Got an incredible arm, makes some okay decisions, and then there's some decisions that you just sit there and scratch your head and go, why didn't you see that, dude? So I think that Lane thought that he could take him in and kind of straighten some of that out. You may see, I don't know what, I think I think he doesn't have a red shirt to burn. We'll have to kind of see about that. But I do think that KJ is going to come out of SEC Media Days as a first or second team All SEC. He didn't last year. He lost out, and I get it. I mean, when you have a talent that goes first pick in the NFL draft at the quarterback position, there's not a lot that you can do as far as what KJ has done. But when you pick Will Levis and you say, oh, you know what? Yeah, he's going to be pretty darn good. I remember driving back from Little Rock Airport and finding that out, getting that email last year, and I just about ran off the road. Hell, Demetrius was like, bro, you got to keep it on the road. What are you looking at that shit for? And I was like, well, here's the deal. KJ did not make All SEC. Coming in, second year under Danny Enos, and I thought, this is complete blasphemy. Well, turns out he might not. Everybody might have been about right. So KJ is going to go back to the drawing board with, I personally think, a better offensive coordinator in Danny Enos that fits his skill set. And I know he's an RPO guy, but Dan's going to be able to keep him upright through those 12 games, man.
Oh, I completely agree. I mean, just like Brett was talking about. I mean, you go back and look at Allen, and as a matter of fact, the game you were referring to, the Mississippi State game, was an absolute battle. That was at Mississippi State, and that was in 2016 because I was there. That was an incredible game. I mean, when you go back and look at Danny Enos, incredible offensive mind. Look at what he did at Maryland with Tiny Tua. I mean, you just look. He's an incredible mind. What he equates to is a quarterback whisperer, in my opinion.
Most definitely. I'm really excited. I was talking with Otis Kirk last Friday a little bit about this too, and that the offensive skill set that Arkansas is bringing to the table is a little unproven, but it is really, really talented. They're just a little raw. It's going to be really important for those wide receivers in that room and getting with KJ during the summer. And Otis said that, he saw the skill position guys out there before these camps. They're out there running routes or running drills. They're creating that rapport that they need. And you look at the off season that they had, the bodies are changing in a good way for Arkansas. And not only the guys that were there, but the guys that just got there are also changing. So I don't want to put a lot into it, but at the same time, whenever you notice those differences that you didn't notice before, it definitely speaks volumes.
It does. And what's the most important thing for KJ and all the wide receivers and really all the skill position players really in general is just reps. Just getting rep after rep after rep, getting used to each other, getting used to the spin of the ball coming out of KJ's hand, the velocity, what it's like when he takes a little bit off, what it's like when he puts a little bit on it.
Yep, most definitely. Well, Wes, I want to thank you for jumping on here with me today and helping out a little bit. It's been a real fun time, and again, everybody, check us out on Facebook at 4-Star Sports Media. Also, check us out on Twitter at 4-Star Sports Media, and also on YouTube. For myself, Jason Pattison, and for Wes Pruitt, I want to thank you all for jumping on with us today. And this has been the 4-Star Sports Media Show on 4-Star Sports Network.